So we're starting in a minute.
I am all set.
Okay, I think we should start. Hello everybody, good afternoon. Welcome back to Remote Workforce Summit. I hope you're having a great time. Before I begin our session, I would just like to start by thanking our sponsors. I would like to thank our sponsors, Automation Anywhere, Nutanix, Blue Prism, Oracle, TeamViewer, Poly, ForcePoint, Tata Communication, Software AG, and Mindware RSA for showing massive trust in our capabilities. So thank you so much. Also thanking all the attendees of making out time and coming and participating and attending all the sessions. So moving on to our new session for today would be collaboration and the new normal. How communication and collaboration technology has thrived during global pandemic and what organization need to do going forward. And today we have our speaker, Mr. David Danto. He's a director of UC Research and Strategy Poly in USA. Just before we begin, I would just like to give you all a brief introduction for Mr. David. Mr. David has about 4 decades of delivering successful business outcomes in media and collaboration technology. He developed and executed global technology strategies in leadership roles with JP Morgan Chase, Lehman Brothers, led media technology facility design and execution for organizations including Bloomberg LP, NYU, AT&T, and Financial News Network. His efforts have been recognized by many premier industry organizations, serving as the director of emerging technologies for the nonprofit Interactive Multimedia and Collaborative Communication Alliance. So thank you so much, Mr. David, for taking your time and coming and speaking on such relevant topic. So again, before I start, thank you so much again. Also, one more thing, requesting all the attendees having any question for Mr. David, he will answer all of them by end of the session. And any attendee facing any kind of problem, getting into any audio issue, I would request them to use Firefox instead of Chrome. So yes, requesting all of them facing any kind of issue with the audio, so please use Firefox. Mr. David, I will request you to please start. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks very much. Let me get my slides shared and say good afternoon to everybody, and thank you very much for joining us at this conference today. I'm very excited and happy to be joining the team and letting everybody know my thoughts and my feelings about what's going on in collaboration in the new normal. I'm just to let everyone know, managing a few screens in front of me right now. This is my home office here in New Jersey in the USA, and I've been working remotely for nearly 2 decades at this point. So I'm going to be looking around at a couple of things. I'm going to try and keep an eye on the chat box and on the Q&A questions panel if any questions come up. So my pleasure to be presenting to you guys. I'm going to keep it very brief today. It's a 20-minute session. I'll try and just put in like 12 or 15 minutes worth of slides and leave time in case anybody has any questions. Just introducing who I am and who Poly is, talking about very briefly the realities of what's going on right now, as if they're not speaking loudly enough for themselves. I'm going to be talking about the terms the new normal and the next normal and what I use them to represent, and we'll get a chance to go through where we are and how Poly can help. So let's start with who I am. This is more information about me than even my family cares to see at any given point, so I'm not going to dwell on it. I've been doing what I'm doing now for, sadly, about 4 decades. Most of that time, 3 of those decades are as an end user in the industry, in broadcasting and financial services. And only in the last 10 years or so, I've been on the sell side, the consulting side, and for the last year or so with Poly. So if anybody wants any more information about me, excuse me, and all of the hats that I wear, you can just go to danto.info and more information, blogs, anything else you care to know about. Poly, I hope you know, was launched a little bit over a year ago by combining the two global powerhouses of Plantronics and Polycom, both global leaders in their spaces. We provide devices that power meaningful human communication. And we obviously, throughout this pandemic, are using, many people are using our tools and finding a lot of them very successful. We deliver a comprehensive set of high quality endpoints that cover collaboration experiences across the board, from home, from traveling, to working in an office, with a consistent user experience across all of them, working across many different cloud platforms, a unique position in the industry, and there are not many organizations that can offer the kinds of things that we can do. And this is especially important now as the lines are blurring between home and office and what's work and what's not work. Having a consistent set of tools and devices that work across multiple cloud platforms easily is something that's extremely important. So let's talk a little bit about where we are right now and, the coronavirus and the COVID-19 pandemic. It's an interesting time to be alive and to see what's going on. We all got the notice earlier this year about the concept of staying home and flattening the curve. And suddenly all knowledge workers who had the ability to work from home found themselves working from home. Like I said, I've been doing that for nearly 2 decades, but I was always in the 10 or 15% classification. Now we are at 95, 100% of knowledge workers working from home. The daily active users, the users of these platforms, Zoom, Microsoft, all the Microsoft Teams, 300, 400, 500 times utilization going forward. Amazing amount of stress put on it, and we discovered that for the most part, with that terrible, horrific pandemic being the reason for everybody to be forced to work at home, it became the perfect storm for remote collaboration. Every knowledge worker that did this was forced to adopt immediately. Broadband turned out to be, now it's better than it's ever been in terms of availability to the home. It's still, there are issues, there are places that don't get it, there are privilege issues in some countries, but still, it's better than it's ever been. There's a huge penetration of computers and smart devices and cameras and headsets around the world, and as a result of that, collaboration from remote locations, from home, turned out to be as effective as we were screaming it had been for years, and a lot of people have realized that. And I'm sure those of you that are attending today have experienced that for work, for social interactions with friends, a lot of happy hours that are taking place online. They're using it for education and distance learning, using it for community events, using it for religious ceremonies. There have been a number of people that are now dependent on these platforms, and we've discovered essentially they work, which is really interesting. And now that we're at this place, we have to figure out how we return back to the office when we're all able to stop sheltering in place, which is happening now in some locations and at some point soon in other locations. A number of industry analysts and pundits are describing the various phases in various sections and times of where it is. I really only want to concentrate on 2 of those phases that I'm referring to: the new normal and the next normal. And I'm using those terms, certainly not original. New normal describing where we are now, which is leaving our shelter in place, but there's still a very big issue around being afraid of getting sick, and we don't have a vaccine or an effective treatment for the most part. And then we'll talk about the next normal, which is after we do have a vaccine or effective treatment. So in the short term, people were told work from home with typically a 2 or 3 days notice. Now that we're leaving homes after the shelter in place, but we still don't have a vaccine, most people who can still work from home are going to still work from home. But rather than having whatever I happen to have at hand, the PC I had in my house, the tablet I was using, we're now going to be gearing up for making our home environment something that's a lot more effective. Using higher quality headsets, better external cameras, perhaps getting the extra display or the lighting or whatever it is that you want to use that you used to have in your office, getting your home either purchased or set up and set the right way, or bringing back tools that you want to have. So instead of this emergency situation, it's going to be more of a planned situation. And as people start to move back to the office, there are a number of things that are going to be happening again, with this concept of caution and fear being more overriding than anything else. Clearly, going into the offices, there will be staggered hours. We don't want as many people congregating in one place, less people on the lifts at any given time. We want to move to low-touch experiences in our conference rooms, our elevators, everywhere we are, that we want to make sure that we're touching things as little as possible. Workers will be better spread out. This concept of densification is probably gone, and we're going to de-densification and moving people, to a more spread out area. The concepts of like hoteling or hot desking, the concepts of the huddle room, those are all at least temporarily inappropriate. Anything, regardless of technology, that forces us to be together in a confined space is probably not a good idea until there's a treatment or a vaccine. Collaboration with remote workers is going to be even more important now and in the future, because so many more workers will be remote. In the past, we might have had a couple of conference rooms or a small percentage of conference rooms equipped for remote collaboration, and now we're going to wind up having all of them needing to be equipped because there's so many more remote workers. And then a lot of these systems that are going to be in conference rooms will start using artificial intelligence, machine learning, other capabilities to avoid that necessary touch. Why do I have to press a mute button when there's noise in the room? Why can't the system be smart enough to know there's noise and mute the sound? Why do I have to pick up a remote or touch a touch screen and have a camera follow me or switch to the person speaking when the systems are smart enough to know to have the camera follow and switch to the people speaking? So we're going to see a lot more of that in this short term going forward, and the importance of collaboration with that going forward. When we go into the next normal, the genie is out of the bottle. A lot of home workers have realized, you know what, if I can avoid 2 hours of commuting a day, be closer to my family, be more effective at home, I don't know why I would go back to the office full time or even. Now, we all do want to be, with other people. We all do want to have that normal experience, but the commute to the office just to be in the office is probably something that we're going to have to work around going forward. I don't think it's going to be there. Employees and employers will realize that the daily commute to an office for no particular reason isn't necessary when you've had good collaboration tools. When you have workers working from home or working remotely, productivity increases, and that's been proven with a number of research studies, including what Stanford University did. You have happier employees. You're able to hire from larger geographic areas, so you no longer have to be living within an hour or so commute to an office. You can hire anybody anywhere. There's cost savings involved for the enterprise. There's environmental savings involved. We're not traveling and producing carbon emissions. So there's a lot of that that's going to take place that is improved. That's going to improve the situation. We will travel when we need to travel. If there's a large meeting in the office, on a project, a brainstorming session, a celebration, an anniversary, we will all go in when we need to go in, but that's going to be the exception. If we need to go to a client's location, if we need to be, hopefully, next year when we do the summit, it'll be in person. If there's a reason to be together, we'll be together. But if there is no reason, the commute to the office won't be automatic. There'll be a greater need for higher quality setups at home. It can no longer be a situation where you're just at your sitting at your dining table or in a bedroom talking, and where you're just opening up a tablet. There are going to be bespoke solutions just for the work from home that will be specifically for an office that you go to. There's also, the concept of business continuity is going to be changing greatly. It always was go to an alternate location. Now it's going to be go to the home location. And by the way, it's not just enough for you to be working from home. How many people are living with you in your household? How much bandwidth do you need for each one of them to be effectively collaborating? We're going to start seeing stress testing in these remote collaborations. And we'll start to see the home be advertised and marketed with this concept of workspaces and workstations. You'll see an advertisement for a residence that's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-workstation, so that people have places that they can go to. It's very important, and it has been for years, that when you want to collaborate remotely, that you have a place to go to in your own mind and in your family's mind to physically separate the time when you're perhaps on a smart device just communicating with your office to when you're actually seated at your desktop at home working. And these are changes that we're going to see going forward for the home worker. For the office, there are going to be some major changes as well. As this remote workforce disperses, you're going to see businesses having smaller footprints over more dispersed locations. A lot of the high-rise towers are starting to see in some of the world's major cities less attendance, less participation. People are looking to shed real estate licenses. So a lot of those will probably turn into residential setups going forward, again, as the workforce becomes a little bit more dispersed. the concept of rooms that are enabled for collaboration will change as well, where it used to be a small percentage, 15%, 20%, whatever listen to Gartner or Wayne House or some of the other pundits that are out there. It's going to flip the other way. I would see that all rooms need to be equipped because so many more people will be working remotely. And you'll need to be able to walk into a room and have that same from home experience that we have now. When I have meetings during the day, I don't even look at what platform they're on. I simply go into the setup, click the button, and join. And we're going to expect that to be in our rooms, where you're not going to be locked into a single provider anymore. If it's on a Microsoft Teams situation, you'll want to be able to join that. If it's on a Zoom situation or a GoToMeeting or BlueJeans or any of the others that are out there, you're not going to want to care. You're going to want to walk into the room and just have it initially work. And the back-to-back calls on different platforms will have to be the norm in most rooms going forward. And also, the concept I've always, when I've managed in my career, I've managed global staffs and 24-hour support staff. So people like myself who have the ability to manage a workforce they're not with every day. You manage based on productivity, based on higher communication. A lot of those skills are going to be very important. You're going to be looking for managers that have those skills. And you'll want to train people to be able to manage a remote workforce and understand how to get productivity and communication with them when you're not always in the same room with them, just making sure if they're in their chair for the correct time. So a lot of major changes that are going to be taking place around the office as well. So the question that comes up, put my Poly hat on just for a second, or my Poly shirt, why work with Poly? We have a complete portfolio of devices for a consistent experience across all of these experiences. When you're in your home office, when you're traveling, when you're in your professional office, wherever you are, from headsets to handsets to video conferencing, we have a complete portfolio of the same native experience regardless of the platform. Our endpoints are smart. You're able to use them across multiple platforms, however you need to do it, and they understand production rules. So you don't have to move cameras around. There's no moving parts. It automatically knows if one person is talking, make a good picture of them. If two people are talking together, put them up on the screen together. All this happens automatically. The muting over noise, the acoustic fence. Not everybody has that. We have those tools, and I think it's a great advantage. And you also want to be working with a global company that has a global footprint. We have the ability to manage these, and management of a lot of these home locations is going to be very important going forward. So there are a lot of opportunities to work with Poly and for Poly to help you as this new normal goes forward. So I've left a couple of minutes here. Let me take a look and see that. I know there's one question here in the chat, and let me take a quick look at it. Well, that's an interesting question. Someone has asked, do you foresee the alternate arrangements for remote work leading to a change in the labor market in terms of salaries and benefits? If you look at this from a sociological standpoint, we are at an inflection point, an accession event that when we look back 5 years from now, we'll realize that we all lived through. Things will change. As I am a remote worker, if I need better tools at home, if I'm expected to have broadband internet connected, I'm going to need to pay for that. I'm going to look to my employer and say, excuse me, employer, I need you to fund this. If it's an expectation for business continuity, how do you provide this equipment? How do you provide resources for me to do that? As an employer, I'm probably going to say, sure, here's the funding for you to have a good home setup, but if I'm giving that to you there, why should I be maintaining an office setup for you, paying for real estate footprint and HVAC and network and the other things that you need in an office? So you are going to start to see a little bit of a shift of what's expected. I know that there are a couple of companies already, large global organizations, that have said that all their workers will be able to work remotely for as long as they want to. And there are others that have said, yes, they can work remotely, but we're going to change their salaries based on where they've chosen to live to make sure that we're staying with market value and cost of living. I think there's a lot of things that we're going to see shake out over the next few months and going into the next year, but there will definitely be changes in how we perceive and how the funding takes place that will lead to this dispersal of a global workforce, which in many ways, in my opinion anyway, is terrific because we're no longer going to have to be hiring people just in one small regional area. We can have managers and employees across the globe in a knowledge worker base, and that's a great thing for diversity and inclusion and making sure that we hire the best and brightest people to be on our teams. Another question here, I have a couple minutes for it. Do I think that technology is overrated? The problem in the Middle East is not technology, but people and the mindset. Have you worked such clients and supported them beyond just providing AV equipment? That's a really good question. The concept of where we are with this technology, I'm able to connect to you, you're able to see and hear me today. That's really just the first box that we're ticking, that we have a check mark in. how do we maintain this concept of community? How do we maintain business culture? How do we make sure that the people that we're hiring and the managers that are hiring them understand how to work in this environment? So it is much more than technology. It's got to be a comprehensive set of ergonomics. What are we set up to work at in the office and at home? How do we teach the correct use of the technology? And how do we manage a global workforce to objectives as opposed to hours and times? The mindset will have to change. And we've started to see some people and some organizations making progress in that as well. So I've got about a minute left to go. I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you. You can see on the screen myself and some of my colleagues that are attending the event. Please, if there's anything we can do to help you, if you have any questions, you just want some advice, or just want to chat, feel free to email me at any time. Feel free to reach out to my other colleagues that are online. We're here to help you. We're here to make your businesses and your lives successful. And we'd love for you to reach out to us and let us help.
David, there's one more question from one of our attendees. Is for working women, would that be challenging being in home parallel managing kids remote class?
That's actually another really good question. When I told you that I'm a poster child for working at home, and I have been for a couple of decades. When I work from home, if my children are in school, if I get that call that one of my children is ill and not feeling well and has a cold or needs to be picked up, when I was working in the large city that I had to take trains, commute, or drive to get to, that would be the end of my day. I'd have to come home. I'd have to pick the child up from school, make sure they're okay. I'd never go back to the office. It was over. Now, in working from home, I have the ability to run to the school 5 minutes away, pick up my child, make sure they have what they need, and if it's nothing serious, able to go right back to work, which increases the productivity. It's very important in your home for men and women to have a place to go to. My office that you're looking around me here with all my pop culture stuff behind me, it happens to be in my basement. When I'm in this room, my children, my family know that I am working. They know not to disturb me. So I'm not sitting at my dining room table and having them interrupt. I'm here to do this. When kids go back to school, whatever the family childcare situation is, it will probably continue, and it'll still be needed. But the ability to work from home doesn't really impact that one way or another. In fact, it helps the environment.
All right, I think we have, I think you've answered most of the questions, but I'm just seeing our next question. There's one more attendee. He would like to ask you a question. Do you foresee that the alternate arrangements for remote work lead to a change in the labor market in terms of salaries, benefits?
Yeah, I saw that question, and we sort of addressed it earlier. I believe so, yes. I think that there will be impact on how enterprises fund this and where the funding comes from, and how employees are able to access those benefits, and how we cover the cost of the productivity increase, either in salary or in anything else. So I do see it shaking out right now and affecting a change, but quality employees and quality workers should always be compensated regardless of the method with which they work.
All right, there's one more question coming in, and I promise this is going to be the last one. So this is by Mr. Sanjay, and Sanjay is asking, David, apart from the quality of your equipment that you will claim to be the best, what are the other reasons that make Poly a name or an impactful brand?
Oh, well, I don't want to discount the idea of being the best that's out there, but there are a number of things that make what we do better. The idea of having a similar, consistent experience wherever you are, whether you're sitting in a situation like me and I'm using one of our fabulous, USB speaker devices so that you can see and hear me clearly, the same experience as if I'm in an office, whether I'm using one of my headsets, traveling, in the house, wherever else it needs to be, that same experience. Poly also is interested in meeting our clients and end users where they are. So if they've moved to one specific platform on their journey, we want to be able to provide them that native experience. If they're using Zoom, we want to make sure that they have a Zoom native experience at all time. If they're using Microsoft Teams, we want to make sure they have a Microsoft Teams native experience. If they're using both, we want to support that. And that makes us a little bit unique from everybody else that's in the market, the ability to meet our clients where they are and provide tools wherever they are on their journey. So I think there are many compelling reasons, and that's a question I'd love to answer one-on-one in person, as would my colleagues that are on the call.
All right, I think the session has been very excellent. Thank you so much. I think you've answered most of the questions, in fact, and thank you so much for your participation and speaking about such a relevant topic. And
Pleasure
then
to be with
for
you
the
today.
attendees coming and participating in this event, I would request all the attendees. Our next session is already started. And it's going to be a panel discussion about technology acquisition, IT enabling the future of work. It has already started 14:50, so I would request all the attendees to please log into the new session. And thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. David. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.